What's going on with the financial markets after the US, Israel, and Iran war started is an indication that the markets are no longer moving based on fundamentals. Instead, it looks like they're moving based on behavior. Let's talk about it. But before that, it's worth saying that it's been this way for a while. And it reminds me of what happened in the 2008 financial crisis and the traders who made hundreds of millions and billions and became an inspiration for the movie The Big Short. One of those traders, as you may already know, is Michael Burry. Michael Burry, as typical of every genius, is a very weird guy. So weird, in fact, that how he knew the crisis was coming was opening every individual file and looking at every mortgage repayment status individually, one by one. This is not something that normal people do. But this is the type of due diligence that you should expect from your fund manager. And the funny part is, he's the only one who did this. The other traders, they did not do this. They figured it out using different things, all of which required less mental effort and less concentration than this. So this guy, Michael Burry, decided to close his fund a while ago, sending a letter to his limited partners, his investors, that he no longer understands how the market works. And he's right, because like I said, the market is not moving based on fundamentals. In a crisis, gold prices are supposed to go up, but they're down. In a crisis, and especially when people lose faith in a fiat currency like the US dollar, the price of alternative currency like, say, Bitcoin is supposed to go up, but it didn't. Even given the fact that the Iranians are accepting payments among other currencies, including the Chinese yuan, Bitcoin, for safe passage across the Strait of Hormuz. But that's not all. We see the prices of oil futures and CFDs fluctuate based on news and statements from the US president. And Bloomberg Economics shows research that indicates that the price of oil futures and CFDs is being more determined by speculation and fear and greed rather than the actual supply and demand for oil. The fear and greed index is typical for the crypto market, a market that is very democratized. It used to be that if you wanted to invest in the financial market, you need a certified, licensed, regulated service provider like an investment bank, a broker, a dealer, whatever. And you have to make calls to them. And they in turn have to go to the trading floor and shout out numbers and exchange paper. But now it's just as easy as a few clicks on the computer or your phone. And it doesn't really require all that much money to invest either. You can set your lot sizes, your leverage, and everything. And this has given the ability for idiots to invest in the market. Hence, the volatility. For example, the amount of investments in the Forex market that's actually for genuine use is much lower than the investment that is for speculation. Same can be said for futures and other derivatives. The amount of people investing in oil futures to actually receive barrels of oil are far less compared to the people who are just trying to make a couple of bucks. And it is this speculation that is making the markets go crazy. Everybody's trying to make a buck. So whenever Trump tweets or whatever you call the true social posts, the prices respond depending on the nature of the instrument. For example, if he says something good, like there are negotiations being conducted, then the price of oil drops and the S&P 500 climbs. If he says, I'm gonna blow stuff up, the price of oil futures go up and the S&P 500 drops. This is not normal. And that's exactly why Michael Burry closed his fund. Because for anyone who was schooled on how investments should be made, on how assets should be valued, this is crazy. And if you were taught to drive your car on the left side of the road and everyone else is driving on the right side, it's very likely that you're either gonna get a ticket or you're gonna get into an accident. And that's why it's not wise to invest in these times unless you too can also dumb yourself down, forget the fundamentals, and only invest based on the contents of Trump's post.